Okay, so the first thing I should say is that I'm not a research methodologist. Research methodologists are people who are into research methodology in a big way. And so their field of study is research methodology. Whereas for most of us, we'll use some sort of research method to do some research. And I'm just going to do a really quick flick through those four paradigms. The sort of stereotyped image of positivist research is scientific research. So basically scientists looking at the agar plates in a laboratory. In education, scientific or positivist research where, for example, people would take children into a room where there was two-way glass and it would probably be videoed, then someone would stand on the opposite side of the glass from where the children were, and they'd watch the behaviour, the interactions. They'd watch the way that the child or the children would respond to different stimuli, like their parent coming into the room, or the parent leaving the room, or the introduction of a particular toy, or something like that. So the scientific notion of changing one variable at a time to measure what's happening. And it doesn't tend to occur in a natural environment. It tends to occur in an artificial or laboratory style of environment. Underpinning the positivist view of the world or the scientific view of the world is a set of assumptions. And these assumptions within that paradigm are not challengeable. They simply are the assumptions that underpin that particular view of the world. And in terms of the positive view of the world, knowledge is seen as objective. It's measurable in some sort of way. It can be objectified by numbers. It's also value-free, so the idea is that it wouldn't matter where this particular phenomenon occurred in the world, it would always occur in exactly the same way. That knowledge is universal, the notion of generalisability. Now, if you take the physical sciences, you can see that the scientific, the positivist paradigm, the positive approach has done wonderful things for us. But when it comes to sociological research, which is what you're all involved in, there's an added complexity in the social world. And that is that you're not dealing with physical objects, you're dealing with human objects. Up until certainly the mid-1960s, the scientific positive approach was the dominant research perspective used in education. And it would be wrong to think that this approach to research and education does not have value. But if you are wanting to look at the way that people understand the world around them, then this is not going to help you because it's very difficult to objectify that. Even now, people's sort of scientific approach to educational research is still the dominant approach. In the 1970s, there was a rise in social research against the assumptions of the positivist approach. It's saying, well, reality is not objective. Reality is something that's constructed, and that the way that people perceive the world is different depending on the person and the context and so on and so forth. And there's this notion then of multiple reality, that we don't all see the world in exactly the same way. A group of researchers who are saying positivist approach doesn't suit social research really very well. And what emerged from that was this idea of interpretivist research. The aim of research is not about objective knowledge. It's about understanding. Knowledge is no longer seen as objective and measurable. It's seen as subjective, contextualised and value dependent. In the case of the positivist scientific approach, the researcher is seen as an independent, objective observer. In the case of interpretivist, the researcher is seen as standing back from the research context. So they're independent in that sense, but what they're observing is not seen to be objective. It's seen to be subjective. That is, that the context is interpreted by the researcher. So the researcher is still in control of the nature of what comes out of the research. There are a number of differences here between the critical and interpretivist approach, in that the aim of critical social research is critique and emancipation. It is about a conscious effort to unpack power dynamics and to take action to emancipate the oppressed. For example, does action research fit into a critical paradigm? Well, it does if your action research is openly political, in the sense that you are unpacking power dynamics with a conscious effort to emancipate those that are oppressed. Now, in this case, the researcher is not external to the researched. The researcher is embedded with the research group. And they are not only embedded, but they're actually indistinguishable from the research group. They are one of the research group. And of course, in this case, knowledge is bound to be seen as very contextualised, highly contextualised, very value dependent. Feminist research sits in the critical critical approach. The important thing, it seems to me, about those paradigms is that they give you a way of hanging on to the assumptions that underpin your research. So if you can define your research, you can define it in terms of those major categories. There are 4 questions there that are worth addressing. And the questions are, where in your personal view do you think that you're located, and why? Why do you think that you're actually tending to one or the other or 2 of them? And secondly, where do you think your research is located in terms of what you're hoping to do, and why? The first question is really important, but I think it's the second question that's really important in terms of you getting your research proposal together.